All right, let's talk about Covaxin for kids. This is something that I think children have been waiting for as well. Indian children especially, a lot of them have not been able to attend school fully for a little over 18 months now, and perhaps a vaccination for children could be the passport to resuming school in a normal fashion and a normal sense. So Covaxin, which is the Indian-made vaccine for COVID-19 made by Bharat Biotech, has got a nod from the subject expert committee today. It's the first step though. A final nod is required from the DCGI before they start marketing and rolling out Covaxin for children. Other questions though which need to be asked right now is, do children who are below the age of 12 require a COVID-19 vaccine? If they don't have this vaccine, can they safely then return to school? What is the risk-benefit ratio analysis when it comes to kids who seem to suffer very mild versions of COVID-19, if at all? What can we learn from what has happened around the world? For example, Israel has allowed vaccination for kids with COVID-19 for those above the age of 5 only in emergency uses and in certain conditions. Is that the path we should follow? So a lot of questions there. To speak on some of these questions, I'm joined today by Dr Shahid Jameel, Indian virologist and director of the Trivedi School of Biosciences, Ashoka University. Dr Vinit Samdani, Pediatrician at Bridge Candy Hospital, is joining us on the show today. Dr Sameer Sadawarte, a senior consultant, Pediatrics and Neonatology at Fortis Hospital, also on the show. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today on the India Development Debate. Dr. Shahid Jameel, I'd like to first ask you about the whole process, because through the day, as we were reporting on the story of Covaxin getting this green signal from DCGI, we soon also had reports coming in from the SEC, I beg your pardon, we soon had reports coming in that the final clearance from the DCGI has not come in yet. This is now just a formality, isn't it?
Well, it should not be a formality, but so far in COVID, whatever vaccines the SEC has recommended, the DCGI has accepted the recommendation. The SEC is made up of independent experts who look at all the data and who make a recommendation to the DCGI. And after all, DCGI is the final authority to accept that recommendation or not accept that recommendation. But so far, we have seen that every recommendation that the SEC has made has been accepted, including, if I may remind you, the acceptance of Covaxin for adults for emergency use approval, even before phase 3 data for Covaxin was out. So those are the facts, and that's how the process goes forward.
Your comment, Dr. Jameel, on the clearance which has been given to Covaxin for kids, do you think it's important to vaccinate children from the ages of 2 onwards?
Sorry, your voice is not clear at all.
Voice is not clear.
Can you hear me now, Dr. Jameel? Can you hear me?
I can't hear.
Hi. Just to your question to Shahid Jameel sir, I will have some additional things here to tell. Of course, this is just now approval is given by the subject expert committee. Still some way or long way to go ahead. And of course, that's a DCGI, Director General Control of India. And after that, it will be the NTAGI, that's a National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization. And of course, the political will. So all these things are required to get the final approval. And again, we don't know at this point whether it's 2 to 18 approval, but should the government authorize as such, like when we done for the adult population, where we start with from the 60 years, then we add the morbidity up to 45 years people, and then we use from 18 to 45. So in the similar way, it will be required for children also to divide it in the, let's say, from 15 to 18 years, and then from 12 to 15
Yeah.
years, and then from
1
2
minute.
to
Dr.
12.
Sameer, thank you for coming in there. I hope I'm audible now. Let me just continue with the question I was asking Dr. Jameel, and I'll come back to you, Dr. Sameer, if you would just allow me. Dr. Jameel, I hope you can hear me clearly now. We seem to have had a small technical glitch, but let me continue this conversation, which is an important one. What is your view on getting the nod? Do you think children as young as 2 need to be vaccinated against COVID-19?
Well, it all depends on the data that is available. And I don't think any of us on this show have seen the data. All I know is that 500 some children were part of the trial. But beyond that, don't know the facts at all. The SEC is privy to that data. So as you rightly said, everything is risk versus benefit. And so far, the data in children shows that risk follows a J type of a curve, where the base of the curve is 5 to 11-year-olds. And beyond 11 or below 5, the risk increases. So those are the facts that we know, but we don't know anything about this trial. We don't know how many children from each age group were a part of the trial. What were the kind of side effects? What were the efficacy? We don't know anything. So I think it's very difficult to comment blindly on these things.
Okay. As a practitioner, Dr. Samdani, how do you look at this? I'm sure you have a lot of parents eagerly waiting for vaccination, perhaps some with some concerns. But as a practitioner, how do you answer this question? Do you think children as young as 2 need vaccination?
Thanks, Samana, for having me on the show again. But yes, I must reiterate few points. I think we should be extremely proud because this is the first indigenous vaccine made by India to as low as 2 years of kid population all over the world to be vaccinated. And we are seeing a slow rise in the COVID cases in children also, but most of them, as you correctly said, are mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic. And I think the parents of the kids are really eagerly waiting for the vaccination as they've gone through the first wave, second wave, and they've seen catastrophes around in the family with friends and also kids suffering to a certain number.
Sure. Let me come to you, Dr. Sameer, on this point. So do you think that, rolling out a vaccination from the age of 2 onwards is the need of the hour? There are multiple facets to this. One, of course, is it would allow them to go back to school more safely. Right now, the hybrid model or, some kids going to school on some days is not entirely working out. The loss of learning continues, and maybe vaccinations would facilitate this?
Okay. So let's go with there are two different sides and things. Should compulsory made the vaccination for going to the school? And second thing, do we need to give vaccination to the children? So as a pediatrician, I will say 100% yes, we should go for vaccination. Let's see, India's population right now is 125 crore. Out of that, from 0 to 18 years is almost 35%. So roughly speaking, almost 25 to 30 crore population belongs to 2 to 18 years. So if somebody wants to say for getting herd immunity, so when we said herd immunity, that means from 70 to 80% of the population should get vaccination or corona infection. So out of this, at this moment, less than 18 years kids, we are not vaccinating. So we are not vaccinating almost 30% of the population of India. So that's a huge number. And provided that right now, I will say roughly data I mentioned about almost we have passed 90 crore of the people of India who has vaccinated. So who else is remaining now? Remaining is almost 25 to 30% and this population of the children. So here we need to vaccinate these kids. Now how to vaccinate these kids, how it's feasible, when the government will authorize it, how we will get it from the DCGI control, and it will come out in the way out in the phased manner. These points need to be discussed in the future. But at this point, I am very happy, as mentioned by Dr. Vinit also, same thing, that every pediatrician is happy at this moment. At least we have started to think of pediatrics and pediatric population.
Yeah, there's going to be quite a few options so far that seem to be there for children in India. So Zycov D already has an approval for the ages of 12 and above. It's expected to roll out perhaps by next month or later this month. Covaxin for kids, we'll have to wait and see when they get the DCGI nod and if they manage to roll out before this year. Covovax, which is based on Novavax and being made by Serum Institute of India, is undergoing trials. Corbevax by Biological E is also undergoing trials. So perhaps by mid of next year, you will have quite a few options of vaccination. One of the points Dr. Sameer mentioned is interesting, and Dr. Jameel, I'd like your view on this. To achieve herd immunity, do you need to have children vaccinated? And I come back again to the example of Israel because they were one of the first movers in terms of vaccination. They finished vaccination for 60 to 70% of their entire population, nearly 90% of their elderly population, but they were hit again with Delta virus, etc. And then they started 12 plus. Do you need all people, including small children, to be vaccinated to achieve this herd immunity?
Let's understand the data first. The data world over, especially from countries which did not close the schools or closed the schools for very short periods of time, it shows that children get exposed mainly in a domestic setting, not in a school setting. So to safely send kids to school, I think the first thing that needs to be done is that compulsory vaccine mandates, just like for healthcare workers, should also be there for school workers. If all adults in schools are fully vaccinated, then the risk of children getting COVID infection is minimized very significantly. So that's a fact. That's data that you can't deny. Now, whether herd immunity can be achieved, the problem with the virus, this virus, especially with the Delta variant, is that its infection rate is so high. Its infectiousness is so high, almost like chickenpox, that you can't even talk of herd immunity. You don't know at what level herd immunity will be achieved, 85+%, maybe 90+%. I think herd immunity is a very misunderstood concept. You don't talk of herd immunity at a national level or even a state level. You talk about herd immunity in clusters. If you have an average 90%, it can mean that there are parts of the country that would have 100%, whereas other parts of the country may have only 70 or 80%. So you can't really talk of the whole country for the sake of herd immunity. And I really don't think we should be talking about herd immunity when it comes to a virus that is as infectious as Delta.
So it comes back to the question then that will this pave the way for kids to go back to school? Dr. Samdani, do you think you would recommend vaccinating children so that they can go back to school? Right now, that is the one place, ironically, that children cannot go. Everything else is pretty much opened up all over the country. But younger kids especially are not going back to school. What we're also seeing is that schools which are calling kids back because they have to take parents' consent have a lot of the parents not allowing their children back. They just don't find it safe. Will vaccinations at least ease those fears? Or should we now take a more scientific approach and allow children to go back to school completely if all the adults working in that system are vaccinated?
So Tamanna, I feel that I think it's 18 months of loss of childhoodness to all the kids, number one. And before the vaccine has even come out, a lot of states have started schools. And as Mr. Jameel said correctly, that the incidence or transfer, if the teachers and the staff of the school are vaccinated fully, is extremely low. So wait for the vaccine, let the vaccine come out. I think the schools have started opening in the city also, and they are calling students from the 8th standard up And slowly, probably by 2022 January, we should be up and about with all the schools opening. And vaccination, there is no question of not getting anyone vaccinated. It is a must. It should be done. And I'm sure that most of the parents are eagerly waiting for the same and would do so once the vaccine approvals kick in and they're out in the market.
So just last question, Dr. Sameer, for all the parents who are watching, no doubt, no question mark, once the vaccine is available, goes through the regulatory process, parents should move ahead and vaccinate their children 2 years and upwards?
Yes, why not? Let's say like most of the common fear, even today I got almost 30-40 calls regarding when you're going to start with the vaccination. People are just heard about the pediatric vaccination and they start saying, we want to reserve our seat or we want to reserve our number. And whenever, as soon as you start in your hospital or in your somebody area, please let us know so that we will vaccinate our children. But they have a lot of confusions and they have some misunderstandings. Some parents have shown concern regarding what will be the side effects of the vaccinations for the kids specifically. So at this point, I will say one thing, like from last 18 months, we are giving vaccination to the adults. And like suppose we are giving en masse to a lot of people, almost 90 crore plus vaccinations we are given. Have you heard about any side effects or major serious side effects? No. What we heard about side effects are just like a simple fever, body ache, pain, and 2-3 days of discomfort at the local site. That was the data from the adult. So what I am expecting, or I think all the panelists will be of same opinion, that even kids will have some minor side effects in the form of having some fever or body ache, but I don't expect it should be the very serious effect. Considering the adult population, pediatric will be the more or less same situation. So parents should not be panic at this moment. We have not yet started. Once we started, we will come to know about the further incidences and good things and bad things regarding the vaccinations. And we have to wait and watch patiently. At this point, what we have to understand, we have to teach and tell the parents, counsel the parents regarding what can be done, how possible to get vaccinated your children and elevate the anxiety in their mind. That is the first priority for every pediatrician. Like we are giving vaccinations to all the children. We give them measles vaccine, we give them BCG vaccination, we give them polio vaccinations, we have a combination of vaccinations. So pediatricians are used to give these vaccinations to the children. And we have almost, like say, I will say Indian Academy of Pediatrics. I am a part of that member.
Yes.
We have 35,000 pediatricians. And almost out of this, I will expect almost 32,000 pediatricians are giving vaccinations, some or the other, to all the kids coming to their OPDs. So they are not fearing about the vaccinations. And parents are also coming to their OPDs.
So before COVID-19, before COVID-19, it was children who were getting vaccinated regularly, not adults. So COVID-19 has flipped it on its head. But the COVID-19 vaccine is a different story. Some of the pediatric vaccinations the doctor's talking about have been around for decades and decades. But anyway, it is good news that we've moved one step further. It would be great if we could see the data, something Dr. Jameel referred to earlier in the show. Transparency and knowing what the data says will be very, very crucial before any informed decisions can be made. Do you want to add something to that, Dr. Jameel?
Well, no, all I would like to add is that, we have seen emotion always running ahead of science in COVID, whether it's India or anywhere else in the world. And, school opening is on the same lines. The data clearly shows that younger children, 5 to 11-year age group, are the least at risk. Whereas when schools are opening, they are opening from secondary school, then middle school, then primary school. It should actually be the other way around based on science. But emotion and perception are running ahead of science.
That's actually unfortunate, because if the science shows younger kids need to go to school and they're the ones who are facing more of a learning loss because of their tender age, perhaps they should be going and they should be disassociated with the vaccine. The vaccine will come when the vaccine comes. Big step ahead today in any case. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the lead story this evening on the India Development Debate. The